So, new project starting today. Now, yesterday, my parents had to put their dog down, sadly. His name was Bo, and he was a boxer. And a few years ago, the dog's brother also passed away, who was also a boxer. They were brothers. There's a bird flying behind me. And so I 3D printed these two boxers, and we're gonna cast these. I haven't decided what I want to cast them in yet, but either way, we gotta start making the mold for these and get them ready. Okay, I think the first one is all done. We're ready for the plaster, so let's start mixing. And then tomorrow morning, we'll throw her in the kiln and we'll slowly crank up the temperature over time. And in about 12 hours, we'll pour. So that was some of the dirtiest brass I've poured, and it was also super overheated, which I'm kind of wondering how I did that, because I kept it around like 0.075 megapascals, which is what I usually do, which is what I did before for the baby shoe. And this one had way more zinc oxide in it, which is what you could see, like all that white and yellow stuff is. That's kind of like spider webby, and all the fumes coming off and all the yellow stuff that I was scraping off the dross. You can see inside my crucible here, there is a ton of it. So a lot of it was actually slag, which is normal with brass, especially, when you're recycling like I am. And that typically happens when it's too hot, which will naturally happen as you melt brass, because the zinc melts at a much lower temperature. You want to try to limit it as much as possible, and you can see here we did not limit it very much. Okay, here are the two casts. So they look really awful right now, but you can kind of see the general thing that came out. So I'm not really sure what all the polka dots are for. It's like some spots took longer to harden than others. I'm not really sure. It's kind of interesting though. You could see there was a lot of cracking that happened in the mold. Now, I'm not really sure why. They were both in steel containers, and I let them go for my normal cycle. Kind of cleaned up. That one isn't really cleaned up, but this one I cleaned up most of the way. And as I was cleaning it, you can see there are a lot of imperfections, and I think it's enough to where I want to remelt these because it's just, I don't know, too much. This one turned out a little bit better from what I can see, but obviously I haven't like cleaned it up as much, so there's probably just as many imperfections. You can see there's a lot of holes and pores everywhere. And I think this is for many reasons. Reason number one, a lot of flashing. I think that was because I think my sand plaster mixture had too much water in it. And so when it's super liquidy like that, the water will eventually have to evaporate. And as it evaporates, it's going to expand a little bit, and it might potentially crack just from that alone. But also, since there's less, when the water leaves, there's going to be less of the sand plaster mixture since it's more liquidy. And I think without that extra strength from the sand and plaster, it also leads to cracking when it's actually poured. Number two, the brass was very dirty. So the brass had a lot of dross and slag on it, and I probably shouldn't have poured it the way it was. And then kind of number three is I overheated it by a lot. So there was a lot of zinc oxide. And when you have a lot of that zinc oxide, it's just, it doesn't flow as well, and it also creates a lot more impurities. Oh no. One thing I definitely noticed though was as I was trying to blow out all the dust and crap inside, it looked like there was still a lot inside of there. And so I don't know what went wrong because I heated these more than I usually do. So like in this one, the whole bottom part actually did fill out. And since this side didn't blow through, you can kind of see here it did a little bit, but on the other side it blew through, but this side should have kept the metal inside. But it's still extremely porous everywhere, which tells me that there was still a lot of residual stuff inside. So I'm wondering if I just didn't get to blow out the stuff that did melt out and burn out very well because my compressor was failing. I don't know. I think definitely next time I really need to make sure that it's all out. So this one turned out much better. There's still a lot of like pitting and some imperfections. Okay, so this one is a lot better. The one that I just pulled out of the perforated flask, but there's still a lot of issues. There's still a lot of like pitting and stuff, and it's gotta be because there's just too much ash and crap inside. It's the only thing I can think of. not even gonna go over that one. But then there's like this one, which was another blowout, but you could see there was a lot of really good stuff that started on the bottom, and then it just boom, blew out. I'm still gonna heat it up and stuff, and I need to burn out all of the PLA, but that's what this is special for. So this isn't made from the PLA that I typically use, but apparently the Overture PLA filament that you can buy on Amazon, which is also cheaper, I just buy the Bamboo Lab filament because that's, you know, the printer I use. I figured it would just work better, but I printed this with the Overture PLA filament, and not only do I think it came out better, but apparently it's also not supposed to leave any ash behind, which is a big deal. It's a huge deal. Okay, so here's the next 4 molds that I have prepared. So the first one is going to be bamboo filament cast in bronze. The second one will be the bamboo filament cast in brass. Then the third one will be the Overture filament with the bronze, which is supposed to have no ash, and I tested that. So there's no ash that gets left behind with the Overture, which should make a big difference. So these first 2, I'm gonna have to use the air compressor for still. And then the fourth one will be Overture again, but cast in brass. Okay, so our testing is completed, and it kind of went exactly how I thought it was going to go. And I'll go over all of it with you guys here, but I got each one laid in their respective corner according to the chart here. So the first one is the Bamboo Lab Bronze. So this one has ash that is left behind during the burnout process, and you can kind of see I had some of that. Now, I'm not really sure why I'm having a lot more of this issue compared to a lot of my other aluminum bronze casts. I think it might just be the shape of this dog. I think because it's got a lot of these like thinner sections combined with the thicker sections, it just makes it a lot harder. And I also have a lot more work to do with my skill in how to like properly vent it up and sprue it and everything. Not really sure what this texture is from, but I'm pretty sure it's from the ash. And you'll see why in a minute as we go over the other ones. Then the next one is the brass. So this one definitely turned out better. Again, some of that pitting detail in the head. And again, I think that's from the ash. But overall, it's definitely better. There's a big difference between casting with brass and something that shrinks a lot, like aluminum bronze. That's why I'm trying to use less aluminum bronze, which is why I'm surprised that this one still had quite a few imperfections, even with less aluminum than I typically use. So let's move on to the Overture ones. So the Overture bronze, now look at that. The head does not have the issue that the other 2 had. So what that tells me is that it's the ash, because the Overture one doesn't leave any ash behind. And since this one doesn't have any of that, I think that's the reason. Now you can still see some of the shrinkage in the body, like you kind of see like those lap lines. I'm not really sure if that's because of turbulence or if that's because of the shrinkage. I think shrinkage is more of like down here. And then the last one, which I was actually suspecting to be the best one, but you'll see here in a second. You can see the head turned out perfect again. There's no pitting or anything. The body looks great. Like everything looks amazing on it. But then you get down here and it's like cracked. Like everything turned out perfect on this. But then there's like this giant hole in the side of the leg right here, and it's full of plaster. So I think what happened is somehow the plaster got inside of the 3D print when I poured it, like almost made it like a hollow cast. You can see it like ended up stopping like right there. But it's like, why the heck did that happen? I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. But like, look, even the sprue tree turned out, the vents. The vents are all connected. Right down there, it got a little thin. So pretty disappointing. My tests worked out pretty good. I got a lot of information from that, such as a confirmation that brass is a better casting alloy, and a confirmation that using the Overture filament is better as well. Now, these were 2 wall prints with 0% infill, so I think that's why there was a higher chance of it filling up with the plaster. And that's why the 4th one failed. I think if that didn't happen, the 4th one would have been perfect. Okay, here is all 4 of them, and they're in order. So if you watch back through the video, you can see this was number 1 pour, 2nd pour, 3rd, and 4th pour. Number 2, fantastic. There's no cracks or anything. There's like no flashing. There's like no air bubbles. There's like looks like a tiny one right there under the armpit. This was a great cast. You can see a little bit more of the copper color. The only thing is there's like 2 air bubbles right there. You can easily grind those out. Might even be able to pop them off. Sometimes you can just pop them off. And last but not least, 4th one. Again, amazing quality. So I am very happy with how this turned out.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.